Chapter 45. What Follows in Shadow. Loyal's horse dislodged a stone which fell into the abyss at the end of the broken bridge. Rand listened for the sound of it hitting the bottom, but it never came. When he thrust his lantern over the edge, there was nothing but endless black. Nynaeve snapped at Moraine for bringing them all this way, only to have to return to Caemlyn. The Aes Sedai told her they only need to go back far enough for Loyal to find an alternative path to Fal Dara. Loyal pulled his eyes away from the edge of the bridge to say he can find another path, but he'd never imagined the decay in the ways had progressed so much. It could be that another path may be cut off in the same manner. Perrin said there must be a way. His yellow eyes glowed gold in the dark, making Rand think they looked like a wolf's eyes. Moraine pointed out that the decay isn't as prevalent as feared. The break in the bridge is old. This cheered Loyal, who now seemed more confident at finding a new route. Then he offered to find a route to Tar Valon or Stedding Shangtai. He supposed the elders would want to speak with him. Moraine insisted that he stick to finding a route to Fal Dara, and they backed the horses to the previous island. Loyal pored over the script on the guiding, muttering to himself in the Ogier language. It sounded like deep birdsong, and Rand wondered how such a large people had such a musical language. Loyal led them to a new bridge, but made a point to say that his home was only in 3 bridges in another direction. Rand told the Ogier, "When this is over, you show me your steading and I'll show you Emond's Field. No ways though, we'll walk even if it takes all summer." Loyal asked if he thinks it will ever be over, and frowning, Rand told him they were only 2 days from Fal Dara. Loyal said he didn't mean the ways, he meant everything that's happening. They kept on their journey, and whenever they saw the white lines that led to a waygate, the Emond's Fielders would eye it wistfully. They were yawning when Moraine announced they would stop for the night on the next island. They settled the horses and made tea on Lan's oil stove, designed to be used in the Blight where wood can be dangerous to burn. Loyal was examining the guiding as he told the group that the islands were once covered in grass to sleep on, and had fruit trees to feed the travellers, juicy all year round. Perrin growled, "Nothing to hunt." Then he looked surprised at what he'd said. Nynaeve asked Moraine if she was going to set any wards. She can feel there is something here even if she hasn't seen it. Moraine told her that what she feels is the taint on the one power used to create the ways. She will not channel within the ways unless she must. The taint is so strong it would corrupt anything she tried to create. This silenced everyone and they settled into their meal and drank their tea. The mood was sombre until Moraine told the group, "I can tell you one cheerful thing. I do not think Tom Merrilin is dead." Rand interrupted to remind her of the fade, but she continued, "Matt told me about Whitebridge. The people there mentioned a gleeman that they had seen, but nothing of him dying. Whitebridge is not a big enough place for a gleeman's death to be a small matter. Tom is also part of the pattern that weaves around the 3 of you. Too important to be cut off yet." Rand deduced that Min must have seen something in Baerlon, and said so. Moraine confirmed that Min saw a great deal. Whatever she does is old or new, but what she sees is always true. Matt made a comment on how Min could have seen anything about them, when all she did was stare at Rand. Egwene raised her eyebrow and said, "Oh, you didn't tell me that, Moraine Sedai." Rand caught the tone of her voice and told her that he only talked to Min once, and she dresses like a boy with hair as short as his. Perrin chimed in to say, "Min was just someone who worked at the inn, not like Aram." Egwene choked on her tea as Rand asked who Aram was. Perrin smiled mischievously as Egwene tried to explain he was one of the Tuatha'an. Still, Perrin added that she'd said Aram danced like a bird. The girl put down her tea and declared it was time for sleep, as Perrin nudged Rand in the ribs and they exchanged a grin. Slyly, Matt told them, "Maybe you ought to tell Egwene about Else Grinwell." Egwene lifted her head as Rand hastily agreed it was indeed time for sleep. Even in sleep they lay close together, almost touching. Matt asked Rand if there was anything between him and Min. She was quite pretty, but she's almost as old as Nynaeve, while Perrin asked him about Else. Rand grumbled, "Blood and ashes! Can't I even talk to a girl? You're as bad as Egwene." Rand tried to sleep but found it was hard to forget he was within something created by men tainted by the Dark One, who had destroyed the world. Moraine walked over to each boy, talking to them, and laid a ward on their dreams, letting them relax and fall asleep. She told Rand that his destiny protects him even here. His dreams will be safe while she is close. Lan woke them and Rand wondered if the warder had slept at all, though he didn't look as if he needed to. They had tea then ate breakfast in the saddle, and it wasn't long before Lan announced that they were being followed. Matt jerked around and launched an arrow behind them before anyone could stop them. Loyal muttered, "I knew I shouldn't have done this. Never deal with an Aes Sedai except within a steading." Lan pushed Matt's bow down before he could release another arrow, calling him a village idiot. There's no way to know what's behind them. Matt declared it can only be something evil to be within the ways, but Lan pointed out that they're within the ways, and Egwene said it could be another traveller. Moraine asked Lan if he can feel if it's a servant of the Dark One, but Lan shook his head and said he cannot tell. It may be the taint of the ways interfering with his senses. Whatever or whoever it is isn't trying to catch them. It could have done so on the last island, but held back. The warder proposed staying back to find out, but Loyal advised against it. He may get lost trying to catch back up with them without an Ogier guide. Moraine agreed with Loyal. As long as their follower doesn't trouble them, they'll keep going. They don't have the time to waste on them. Loyal murmured that there was a path from the last island that would take them all the way to Tar Valon in half a day. Then he broke off when he reached the next guiding. The slab was marred with deep, angular grooves, and Lan went into complete alertness, circling it as if expecting an attack. Moraine said it explained much and makes her afraid. She should have guessed. Nynaeve demanded what, and Loyal questioned who or what did this. He's never heard of the like. Moraine told them that the marks are Trollocs script. They must have learnt how to use the ways. It explains how they got into the two rivers unseen. There were gates within the Blight they could have used to enter, and there were way gates at Manetherin and Shadar Logoth. They cannot know all the routes though, otherwise they would be flooding into Caemlyn through the gate they'd used. Rand shivered at the thought of that, as well as the possibility of them being hidden in the dark. Lan called out that Trollocs don't have an easy time using the ways, then illuminated a scene for the group to witness. Rand felt sick at the sight. At the foot of one of the bridges were Trollocs frozen in a struggle, half sunk into the stone itself which had bubbled around them. Rand heard someone retching. Even for Trollocs it was an awful way to die. A few feet beyond them the bridge ended, and a signpost was shattered into 1,000 pieces. Loyal got down to inspect the site, and told them that this was the first bridge on the route to Tar Valon. Rand saw that Egwene was scared and moved Red over to her, touching her shoulder. She twisted to hug him and he felt her shuddering. Holding her was the only thing keeping him calm. Moraine said it was just as well they weren't going to Tar Valon, and Nynaeve rounded on her, to ask how she could be so calm. The same could happen to them. Moraine told her perhaps, in such a serene voice that Rand could hear the wisdom's teeth grinding. Moraine said it was more likely that the male Aes Sedai had set traps against Shadowspawn using the ways. She emphasised they need to hurry and asked Loyal to find the route. Egwene clung to Rand's arm for 2 more bridges, and he missed the human contact when she pulled apart from him. He found it was easier to be brave when someone depended on him. Despite Moraine's belief that the traps were for Shadowspawn, and their need for haste, they travelled slower than they had before. Later in the day he felt a wind for the first time in the ways. He couldn't say from which direction, and at first he thought it was his imagination. Suddenly he blinked and asked, "Loyal, didn't you say there isn't any wind in the ways?" Loyal pulled in his horse and cocked his head to listen. His face paled and he whispered hoarsely, "Machin Jin, the Black Wind. The light illumine and protect us, it's the Black Wind." Moraine sharply asked how many more bridges are left. Loyal told her he thinks it's 2, and she told him to find the path quickly. The Ogier studied the guiding, muttering to himself about how people came out of the ways mad, screaming about Machin Shin. Then he galloped toward a bridge, shouting for them to follow. Rand could feel the bridge shake under the horses' hooves as they galloped, and the lanterns swayed wildly. Loyal scanned the next guiding quickly, and the sound of wind grew louder behind them, gusting closer. The Ogier didn't even bother to track the next guiding, and out of the darkness came the sight of a vine-covered gate. Moraine didn't bother to dismount as she reached the gate, then announced, "The Avendasora leaf is not here. The key is gone." Matt shouted, "Light! Bloody light!" Loyal threw back his head and crowed a low, mournful cry, like the howl of the dying. Egwene touched Rand's arm and he clutched her hand, hoping he didn't look as afraid as he felt. He could feel the wind and almost felt as if he could hear voices screaming vileness which brought bile to his throat. Moraine raised her staff, a flame erupting from its tip, but unlike before, had a sickly yellow cast to it and emitted black soot that made Loyal cough and the horses shy away. Moraine thrust at the gate and the stone began to melt like butter. She moved as fast as she could, but it would take time to melt an opening large enough for them to pass. Soon Matt said he could feel the wind, as Moraine said that she'd finished. She revealed a hole big enough to ride through single file, though Loyal would have to lie flat on his horse. Lan charged the gate slab on Mandab, toppling it over, and their momentum carried them through the portal. Rand could see daylight on the other side, and he pushed Bella toward it, then slapped the mare's rump. Bella leapt through the portal, carrying a startled Egwene. as Moraine shouted for them to hurry. She aimed her staff in the direction of the last guiding, and a light burst from it, streaking into the blackness. The wind shrieked in agony, then screamed in rage. 1,000 voices roared like thunder, half-mad ramblings and promises that twisted Rand's stomach. He booted Red forward, feeling the icy chill of passing through the portal. It seemed to last forever, then vanished like a pricked bubble. He felt a winter crisp cold, but he welcomed its naturalness over the ways. Lan gripped his sword and looked as if he prepared to charge back into the ways. The waygate stood amongst a jumble of ancient fallen stones, grown over with bushes. Everyone was out now except the Aes Sedai. Suddenly the portal began to bulge and Moraine's back began to appear. Slowly she emerged, pulling Aldieb with her, until both broke free. The portal darkened until it was black as the ways, and as if from a distance the wind howled, voices full of anger and pain. They seemed to whisper in Rand's ear, "Flesh so fine to tear, to gnash the skin, skin to strip, so nice to plate the strips, so nice, so red the drops that fall, blood so red, so sweet, sweet screams, pretty screams, singing screams, scream your song, sing your screams." The whispers faded as the blackness lessened, until the portal became its normal dull colour. Rand let out a long shuddering breath and heard the others emulating him. Egwene and Nynaeve clung to each other, and even Lan seemed to be relieved, though his face showed nothing. Moraine said it could not pass. She had hoped that was the case. She threw away her staff in disgust. It was covered in char, and she said it was tainted by the ways. Nynaeve demanded to know what that was, and Loial told her it was Machin Shin, the black wind that steals souls. Nynaeve persisted. "But what is it? At least with the Trolloc you can look at it, touch it. But that?" Then she shuddered, and Moraine told her it was something left from the time of madness, the War of the Shadow or the War of Power. Something hidden so long it can no longer get out. No one, even amongst the Ogier, know the full extent of the ways. It could be something born of the ways. Everything living has a parasite, born of the corruption and decay. It is something that hates life and light. Egwene cried that she didn't want to hear any more, but Moraine murmured that the worst was yet to come, though Rand didn't think anyone was meant to hear her. The Aes Sedai mounted as she said the waygate is dangerous in itself, even if the Black Wind cannot leave the ways. Once they reach Faldara, she will have Lord Agomar send men to wall it up. She pointed to the north and they saw towers in the distance above the barren treetops.
Thanks for listening. Please like, share and subscribe and help get a new channel off the ground. Thank you.